I have a panel here, very esteemed gentlemen. I'll let them introduce themselves, but before that, I'll let you know a little bit about myself. My name is George Gakuru. I head up the technology growth programs for Fujitsu in North America. What we do within that program is mainly try to bring Fujitsu's core technologies to our customers. And one of our key focus areas is the ports in the Americas. And so very happy to be on this panel moderating with these gentlemen. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hello everybody, I'm Luiz Fernando from Parana Portos. We are a port authority in Brazil, in south of Brazil, hasn't had the opportunity to know or discover more about Portos of Parana. We are located in the south, and the last year we handled around 58 million tons of cargo, and the forecast for this year it's over 62 million tons. So here we are excited to receive as a consumer of these products to improve our quality and sustainability, operations and management, of course. So thank you.
All right, well, good late afternoon, everyone. My name is Adam Schipper, and I'm a director of ports for Ericsson. And I think early on, my mom knew that I was going to work in the ports industry. She named me Schipper, so I have that. I just knew it was an early destination. And true, my grandfather was a truck driver, and I eat like a truck driver, and I've been in logistics for over 30 years. So vast experience. The past 2 or 3 years really involved with the AAPA. I was lucky enough to be a part of the Smart Port Committee. So to tell you that this topic is really starting to change. 2 years ago, we kind of started, and now we have our own committee that's really focused on the smart ports. And then in July, we had the Smart Port Expo, and next year we're going to have the Smart Port Expo again. So we're really excited about this topic. I'm really excited to be here. And the last thing that I'll say is that Ericsson has committed to ports and smart ports. We have 10 people on the team that's dedicated to just supporting ports in this industry. We have about 7 of them here located today in a booth. So we're really all in on supporting this community. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Good afternoon, I'm Steve Elmore, Managing Director at Fresh Consulting. I began life in the Air Force through into the Cold War, Desert Storm, and then was in avionics for a little while, and then went through a few professional incarnations, including a ill-advised stint as a professor, and then moved into technology, spent a lot of time in social enterprise, big data, and a lot of time in AI/ML, and joined Fresh Consulting a few years ago. We are an innovation consultancy based in Seattle. We've been around for about 15 years, almost 500 people in the company, and we do everything from building very cool robots and doing augmented reality to just beautiful design work. So I actually we've been partnering with Ericsson, and they've been kind enough to let us do a demo in their booth. We also brought, including myself, 7 people from our team here as well. We are very committed to ports, and think that this is a very underserved area, and we're here to help to make a difference. So very excited about this conversation today, because this is right in our wheelhouse. It's about everything that's cool and smart and technology. So thanks for having us.
Well, your name's Doctor, so there's got to be some stuff as well.
Yeah, that's right. All right, thank you very much. I think this panel is going to bring a lot of insights to you guys, and I hope you guys are ready to take notes and gain some cool insights on what we can do with smart ports. So let's start off with, how do we define a smart port? And I think the gentleman to my left, Luiz, is in a great position, being that you are part of a port, to start this conversation.
Of course, I almost forgot, but in time, like I'd like to present my sincere thank to APA to having us here also. Obviously, when we talk about smart port, we think in high technology, and you are the specialist and experts. But in a port authority condition, we think a lot how several means could be defined as a smart port. So we know every high tech could help us improve our movements, as I said, our quality. We need to survive in this sector, especially in Brazil. We are a neighbor from Port of Santos, to who know is the biggest port in South America. Then we need to survive with different conditions and offer to our clients different positions and a good efficiency in the end. But we can define a smart, besides the high-tech sense, we can define a good position or a smart port in several means, as I said. As a smart port could contribute with our community. Every time as a port authority, I heard during these days about how our community fighting against the ports. All the time. Due to the traffic, especially a lot of trains, a lot of trucks. But they need to remind how important it is to our community, the port. We represent, in our case, 6% of the labor in the municipality, and around 50% of all incomes to the municipality, to the mayor. So we need better. We need do a good communication, and when our community enhance our port authority, enhance our ports with this new sense, we could define in other perspective as a smart port. So once I was talking with my friends about this several definition, and he said and advised me, no, never comment something like that. But I'm really sure that I'm confident that we need search several things to optimize our operation, our quality, our sustainability, but our community also. So I think in this first moment, I do this contribute about how smart we need to do, or what is a smart port in this conception from a port authority.
Yeah, I would like to add, just simply stated, is our view of a smart port is the modernization. Being smarter is how can you use technology, how can you use modernization to improve your port. And the other way to look at it is just take a look at your everyday life. Whereas where your Amazon today, you see 6 or 7 stops out when that delivery is going to take place. You have a smart thermostat that's in your home today. And when you leave the house, at least in my case, I have it on my phone, and then when I leave the house, it knows to turn the temperature up. And then when I'm coming back, it's geofenced and it knows to start turning the air condition down because I'm coming back home. So you think if these technologies are taking place in your household, shouldn't the place that brings 80% of all of our goods, meaning ports, be leveraging this same technology? And they haven't. And now we're going to be. So I think that's a clear definition. And one sidebar on that is, I loaded the app on my phone, so what would happen, and I'm from Dallas, it's extremely hot. So when I would leave, the air conditioner would go off, but my wife would be home. So I had to quickly learn to make sure that I put the app on both of our phones. So I learned that lesson quick. I became smarter quick on that one. But I think the last comment that I'll make about the definition of a smart port is that you really have to take a look at it as all of the stakeholders. You can't just take a look at one part of the port, and I think this kind of illustrates this, is that there's different stakeholders within a port, and what you have to do is make sure that, I kind of look at that where you've got a stick and you're spinning the plates, you've got to make sure that those plates are spinning. So we take a look at it from, are you best optimizing your operations? Meaning, are you using AGVs? Are you using robots to be able to optimize? Are you becoming more efficient? Like, what are your port of call processes in place? What's your turnaround time? Are you learning? Are you capturing your data? Are you having that in a single plain source of truth? Are you integrated? Meaning, is everything all working together? That's also a big piece we're going to dig into and give some illustrations of that as part of a smart port. One of my favorite ones is sustainability. That is definitely part of a smart port and complementing. And then lastly, and a big topic we're hearing is cybersecurity and security. Are you a secure port? If you could take each one of those buckets and kind of do a double check on what you're doing, then you have a good reference to see, yes, we are doing these things as a smart port. So I think, I don't want to, we talked about this, George, and this is a great point, because I'm like, well, we should get up there and talk about, and George made a great comment. He said, look, we got to be careful not declaring who's a smart port and who's not a smart port. It's really, everyone's a smart port, it's just how do you work smarter? So I know that was a long-winded description, but that's a topic that we're really passionate about.
Yeah, and just to echo that, at the end of the day, it is about human-centered design. They're humans, and if the smart port does not make the humans smarter, it is useless. So as great as TikTok is, it has produced a lot of idiots. And it's just a clear example of the technology doesn't necessarily make you smarter if you're not able to make better decisions. So the human has to be at the center of anything that you do. And that is something that is lost, especially among technologists who get very excited about, oh, it can do this, it can do that. But if it didn't make somebody's life better, didn't make it safer, didn't make the decisions better, it really didn't do anything.
Thank you very much, guys. Great answers. And one of the things that we did talk about, and Adam, you touched on it, could we take a look at how do smart port use cases look like, right? And maybe I'll go to you, Adam, first to share with us some of that smart port use cases, and we'll go to Steve. And maybe, Steve, you could project us into 50 years down the line and help us understand from today what do a port look like 50 years from today?
So I think this is a great illustration behind us to give you some examples of smart use cases that we're seeing implemented today. Some of them further along than others, but certainly all of them that we're taking a look at. Just in a quick, short, succinct manner, just to speak to a couple or the top 5 that we're seeing. One is we definitely are seeing drones, and in the capacity of, it's kind of a combination where you're now seeing autonomous driving come into play. Ericsson's view of a smart port is it all starts with the foundation of a private network. So the enablement of all of these use cases, it needs to be connected. It needs to work. It needs to have visibility in real time. So the first thing you really need to take a look at is making sure that you have the correct connectivity. We believe that private cellular networks, having your own dedicated cellular network, is a really good way to start as a foundation for a private network. But again, once you have the foundation, whatever it is that you decide to do is your foundation and it's connected. Now you start adding these use cases on top of it, which is what you're seeing illustrated here. The drones are being used today for many things, inspection, where things are mission critical and humans can't get to from a safety perspective. Another really interesting use case for drones is we're seeing at the Port of Virginia, where they have rolled out a private network, and their first use case that they're rolling out is an autonomous driving pilot. And the reason that they're doing the autonomous driving is because they want to get ahead of it. They want to be able to figure out, how do we best communicate to the drivers? How do we best communicate to the union? They want to own that narrative on autonomous driving because they know it's coming and they want to get ahead of the curve. But in these areas, because it's brand new with autonomous driving, they're sectioning off parts of the port where there's no humans, only autonomous vehicles today can be there. And so they're using drones to be able to do the inspections and do the security checks in the cases where there can't be humans. The reason I went into all of that is because the big thing about smart ports too is that you've got to be careful and respectful of the unions. And how do you move forward? How do you modernize your port, but also be respectful to the unions and also to all the employees, that you're making sure that you're enabling them, making them better, but not cutting jobs. So all of that has to be part of the narrative of a smart port, is that people can't be threatened that technology is going to take over their roles. They have to use it as it's going to enhance their roles. It's going to make them safer. It's going to make them efficient and enjoy their job more. That's really what it's about. But just to round off real quick, some other use cases that we're really seeing that I really enjoy from a smart port. Condition monitoring, meaning being able to know in real time when something goes wrong before it happens, so that you can be proactive instead of reactive. We're seeing a lot of sensors and everything around condition monitoring to be able to have that type of intelligence. We're seeing that rolled out in quite a few ports. And then just all of the AGVs, and I'll close because I can cover all of these, but I'll just do one more real quick, is that with an AGV, how do you do it so you don't lose a man? If you're thinking you're going to have an autonomous truck, that means you're losing a driver. Well, what we're seeing is the drivers drive in a different location. So they'll be in an office, and then the truck will drive, and they'll be able to drive remotely. So think about how much safer that driver would be, and then you're equipping that autonomous with all of the sensors and all of those things from a safety perspective. So you're almost having two different ways to make sure and ensure that autonomous vehicle is safe, and you're not losing any employees, any man count by doing it.
Thank you, Adam. Over to you, Steve. Take us to the future.
So, love to think about this a lot. I think at the top of the list for me, ports are going to be green in the future. And when we think about 50 years from now, they're going to look extremely different. And I think that's going to begin with ships are going to be different in 50 years. If you look at the designs that like Maersk and NYK are coming up with for the next generation of cargo ships, they're very different. And so the ports are going to have to adjust for those. You're going to have to adjust for alternative fuels. You're going to have to adjust for ships that now contain much larger composite components that are going to need to be serviced in the port. So I think that's going to be very different. And also I think these ships in the future are going to behave differently in the water. And so that's going to have implications in the port environment. Also, I think we're going to start to see, and we're already starting to see now, the kind of the movement of trying to get traffic out of the ports to remote intermodal locations, so further inland. So think about the Boring Company creating a tunnel that goods could go through and bypass all of the downtown traffic of a city. So they've already started to demonstrate this. I live in Austin, Texas. Boring Company moved to Austin. One of the reasons they did that is there's this amazing chalk layer between Austin and Dallas that they can drill through. It's the same thing that the channel they drilled the channel through chalk layer between England and France. So that's kind of the idea there. They've built smaller machines that can move very rapidly so they can build a tunnel quickly and inexpensively. And so we're going to start to see kind of these other technologies and other industries come in and start to have an impact. So I think even the look of the port itself may change and the amount of time that cargo may spend in the port. And then I think the other part of this is that ports are going to look different from the perspective of a kid. So think about a kid right now thinking about a career in the maritime industry or in ports. And I grew up with the original Star Trek, and I think about like what Star Trek was like for me as a kid, and I think that's what the ports of the future are going to be like. So the stevedore of the future is going to be kind of like the NASA mission specialist now. And so I think as technology starts to transform ports, it's going to become a much more appealing thing for a younger generation of people, especially ones that are technologically adept and want to be in an environment where technology is kind of a core component. So.
I was gonna say,
About the Star Trek is that the only part about the Star Trek I really didn't like was the dating of the aliens.
Over to you, Luiz. Do you have anything to add on how this port use cases look like?
It's pivotal you think about what Steve said, and then also especially this condition of the tunnel. I think that Port of Miami built a big tunnel through to cut the city, and in Brazil we were discussing right now in Port of Santos construction. But we need to work with all this technology, but it is necessary, it's mandatory to improve the cybersecurity, as Adam said, because all machines are controlling our operation. And here this illustration, the most this situation in our port in Portos of Parana, we are discussing right now to implement a port community system that becomes everything a reality, and the port authority could see how the actors interact between them. But we need know and discuss about these questions about the jobs. It's very important because the unions stop this process or could late about this kind of process.
are you dealing with unions as well, where you are?
Yes, all the time.
Because I thought that was, and again, I thought that was, I understand from North America, from the United States, but you're seeing it on.
Yes, it's very complicated in Brazil also. And depends on the governor, the federal governor, also they be strong, or in this moment they are very strong. Then we need to be careful to build a process, a clean process, and stop and get to the community, get to the logistic chain, a possibility to develop and increase and improve our operations.
Thank you very much. So, one of the other slides that we had was really empowering use cases or repository of use cases from the port. Maybe, Adam, if you could share with us some of the use cases that you're seeing customers begin to uptake, right, in this space.
So this slide, I know it's a lot, and it always is one that gets a lot of pictures because there's a lot of different use cases that are up there, which are great, because the key here is that you got to make sure that the partners, the ecosystem, are going to support that, and it gets back to all of this needs to be integrated. So just to be able to throw this up there would be disingenuous without the caveat of everyone's going to be a little bit different. But what I really like about this information and how it's being presented is, again, the buckets that we're putting these use cases into. If you take a look at the bottom of that chart, you can kind of see that we're bucking them, putting them in buckets, and then you can kind of tie those to your smart ports initiatives. And then we can get further into, well, how do you take this huge list and prioritize them?
One of the things that's on this list is digital twin, and I don't know if anyone went to the digital twin workshop a couple days ago that, or I guess it was that yesterday? Time flies when you're having fun. So, but that is, I think, critically important. It's not only vital, I think, for ports to have that and really for all infrastructure, but the critical component is updating the digital twin in real time. And that's where drones, I think, are going to be playing a pivotal role. Drones are just a remote sensor platform. It's just something that moves around, that holds different types of sensors, that provides you data. And what you want in that digital twin is the most recent, up-to-date data that helps you make a better decision. So I think that's going to be a really critical component of it. And I think we're going to see a massive acceleration in innovation in drone technology in particular as a result of the war in Ukraine. They've trained 20,000 drone pilots this year, and that's as many pilots as there are in the US Air Force. And the things that they are doing with drones run the entire gambit. It's not just combat, but it's observation, it's correction, it's all kinds of things. They're making them smaller, they're making them last longer, they make them so that they can communicate from a further distance. All the defense industry is paying attention to this, and it's going to be a massive disruption. And you're going to find now that you're going to have remote sensor platforms available for ports that are ridiculously inexpensive. And so it would be almost ludicrous not to use them because the price point will be so low to get so much data, especially if you're starting to do forecasting models on capital assets. So I think it's going to be a pretty pivotal thing.
Just to add, this condition of data driving is very important, especially because when we are discussing about improves and new technology, everyone brings us in. And this condition we saw a lot in Brazil. Every week I receive in my office a new tech company bring a new maximum system drive or device, and all companies said the same thing: forget what you have and start right now from the zero and complete. So as a consumer, as I said, it's difficult for us completely forget what you have and start again. And our history about and our data driving. So it's very important a condition we can merge or we can succeed products with a good transition or a light transition to port authority, because we're involved a lot of cargo, a lot of jobs and responsibility also. Then it's very important for us.
Thank you very much. So I think we've covered a lot on use cases for smart ports, right? In the next section, let's start to look at how do you begin the journey, right? How do you begin this journey into smart ports? And on this slide, we've really tried to simplify the port space. I do understand it's a very complex ecosystem, but we just said there is basically the seaside, marine operations, there's a yard, right, with terminal operations, and then there's a land, right? So once you have your goods out of the yard, how do they get out of the land? And we did talk about some different use cases in that space. But I'd imagine when you look at your port or your portfolio and try to figure out where do you start the journey in these different spaces, I'd like our esteemed panelists to maybe share some insights and give you guys some key takeaways on beginning this journey. Let's start with you, Steve.
So in almost all of this, it's going to begin with some kind of data architecture. So usually that path begins with some kind of digital transformation strategy. It's amazing visiting different ports, finding that the person at the gate is tracking things with a piece of paper and a pen, and that is more common than not. And so what happens if you lose that notepad? What happens if you need to make an immediate decision? So I think there is kind of that burning platform issue of we've got to get all of this someplace where everyone can access the data in a way that's secure. So the first part of that is the digital transformation journey. What is it that you're actually trying to accomplish? Don't do it just for the sake of doing it. Do it because you've got an outcome that you're trying to achieve, and do it in a way that you can address the low-hanging fruit, that you can actually demonstrate some ROI on the initial efforts, and that you start to build that muscle. A lot of organizations, and we work even outside of Ports, a lot of organizations just don't even have the internal capacity to do some of the things that they need to for a digital transformation journey. So part of that is figuring out what skills do we need to have as an organization? What do we need to look like from a recruitment standpoint, from a training standpoint? What is our infrastructure going to look like? All those questions need to be answered. And then that starts to move you to the next step, which is, what is our data going to look like? Where are we going to keep that whole data architecture element? That then gets you to start to answer, I think, all of these other questions. But it really begins with those initial conversations of trying to figure out what it is you're really trying to do, and then developing at least the initial part of that plan and executing on it, and not losing momentum. So I think that would be the other thing, is pick projects that you know you can complete, and don't stall, because it just takes a long time to get the momentum up when you get a lot of people who are disappointed by a failed project. They're like, we're not going to try that again. So.
Adam?
Yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't say this, but I think it's kind of ironic that the person talking about digitalization has his notes on the Gaylord Hotel. So I think we all can work on getting smarter and leverage digitalization. You can't fix age, though. I mean, but circling back to the where do you start and where do you deploy, what we're finding is that you really start with what is the easiest to deploy. You kind of look at, we kind of have it up there on that high, medium, low digitalization, is I think you have to kind of, you can pick your use cases, maybe one or two you're going to shoot high for, one maybe in the medium, and then you really want to start to, you need to monetize the investment that you're making in a smart port, because you have to show results fast. I think we all, as we work every day, they always say, oh, we're starting this initiative, and then a few months later, it's where are the results? I mean, we're getting that at Ericsson, right? I mean, we come here, we do this, well, how many ports have signed on and rolled out a private network, right? They're, at first they're like, hey, let's make this team and let's do all this planning also. And this happens in ports as well. You have to be able to monetize the investments that you make. And we're partners to be able to help people monetize that. And what we have seen is the biggest bang for your buck is to kind of start off with just basic communication, being connected to all the workers, being connected to the assets, being able to know where everything is, starting at that base, and then start going into all the sensors that are now available and being able to pull the data off those sensors, and it's kind of building up into that medium. And then you kind of get into the advanced ones. Some of the cool ones that we're seeing, Port of New York, New Jersey, they just did a pilot on you've heard of a Roomba, right? These machines that come in and they vacuum your house. It's pretty cool stuff. We're now seeing that in the port, not the vacuum, but this device actually does, it takes away the FOD, so the foreign object debris that are in the pathways, and then it also serves as a snow remover at the same time, and all of that's autonomous. So it's kind of a really neat use case that New York and New Jersey are really excited about. That would be my comments on that.
Thank you. That Adam is concerned about cybersecurity, so it's the same way to protect your data. Then we should, as a port authority, bring our offer to the new companies or tech companies our case. We have a lot of cases to explore. We need give a first step towards to connect to that companies with Port Authority. That's a good example in Brazil, when we open to new startups, new companies, to offer solutions that we don't have solution 50 years. Sometimes when asking me about what's your desire in Port Authority as a solution to solve some problem. As a grain port, we explore a lot of agribusiness and also have a lot of pigeons. And it's impossible you finish with pigeons in our port. And the environmental agents finds a lot out the ports because we don't have the solution to the pigeons. It's forbidden, kill them. It's the first case that we always offer to the startups. Help us with this simple solution. It's a good way. Yeah, it's a good way, a good step. Then it seems a killing, but it's very. Then we go to the other systems that we need connected. All terminals, we have 3 pillars basically in a port authority. We have the terminal. It's a group of discussion. We have our access maritime. In our case, we need dredging a lot. Then we need show the solution and bring solution as a VTMIS. It's a good solution to bring us a good maritime solution, and we have other access from the roadways and the railways. So we need to bring this company to develop good solutions to solve and improve sustainability and our efficiency in operation.
Thank you. So the pigeons might be unionized. But Steve and his drones, maybe. Alright, cool. So, ladies and gentlemen, we do have one more slide on reflections, but before that, let's take some questions. We'll start with gentlemen.
Yeah, AI. How important is AI, and when are we going to try to activate that into what you're talking about today at this meeting?
So it's critical. All of this data that we gather is going to be leveraged by machine learning of one form or another. So whether that's like a predictive model. So imagine it's Port of Corpus Christi and you are super, super busy and it's a fog day. And now you have to change all of your operations, ships coming in, trucks coming in, trains coming in, the whole thing. And how much time does it take to do something like that for a port that big? For any port for that matter, but that's a great one because I think a few years ago they had 30 fog days in 1 year. And so you think about the lost revenue. And it's not just ships not being able to get in, but it's everybody else in the ecosystem. It's the 400 port tenants. So AI is a way for you to rapidly recalibrate and be able to come up with new solutions. This is also why the data is critical. It has to be clean. It has to be reliable. If you try to build an AI model on bad data, you're going to get a bad AI model that just reinforces all the garbage that you never wanted. So that part becomes really critical. So there's a lot of opportunity in how you can leverage it. And I think now with large language models, so like GPT, things like that, there's a whole new world that's opening up that you can leverage in terms of improving communication, in terms of understanding kind of the world around you. And then the one other thing I'll throw on that is all of this lends itself to what we call, there's virtual reality, there's augmented reality, so anything that's in what we kind of call the XR space, that's going to be the other way that you leverage all of this data and be able to pull different data sources together and visualize it in a way that allows you to make an instant decision. So I can take like 3 or 4 different data sources, stitch that together into something that would be like a heads-up display, for example. And now I could look around and I could see everything that's going on and know the status of something. Or, I could guide a ship through fog, for example. So again, this becomes really critical, and AI is at the core of all of that because you can't do it without it.
That's a really good point. We do have also use cases, like at Fujitsu, some of our solutions around optimization, whether it's of container optimization when the high containers get packed, or actually protocol optimization. So when ships are coming in, your berth management, we're able to overlay AI into your current transactional system that's doing that to help you optimize and, again, drive data decision making within the organization. So there are a number of different use cases. We touched a little bit on sustainability, and when you look at just traffic flow and you look at trying to reduce greenhouse gases, we've done a couple of use cases, like for example in Port of Hamburg, where we were able to show them through traffic optimization a reduction in CO2. So yeah, those are some of the use cases where you can leverage AI and make some meaningful change. Any other questions?
As is often the case, technology outpaces the government, outpaces regulation, but different departments of our government are now thinking about, especially with AI and with automation, what regulations might be needed. And I don't expect anyone to have an answer, but I guess both in terms of making sure these systems aren't exploited, and in terms of making sure that I don't know, but the question is really, what regulation do you think might be needed, or what should we work very hard to avoid regulating? And maybe that's a conversation we as an association should keep having. We don't have a perfect answer now.
What was your question?
No, I was going to just state that I think that that will all play out, and even in the union negotiations now, they know that this is coming down the pike. So these are starting to get factored into so whereas autonomous was just not a word that you could even use, that is now changing course. So I think over time, these will come to fruition, drones, all of these examples. But you're right, there is something, we definitely need to address it as we come along, but we're already seeing that. So that is one of the positives of the unions, is that we as the port community need to get out in front of it. It forces us to do that, and we're doing that.
I'll just add one other thing. I know there's an upcoming ISO standard for AI. One of the critical components is ethics in AI, especially in procurement. And so I would say it is very much on the radar. I spoke at the World Economic Forum on this subject, and there are a lot of people talking about it. I think it's going to become kind of a baseline conversation for almost everything we do. Like, what are the implications of AI on this? I think a lot of people worry about runaway AI. I think anything like that is far, far off into the future, but there's a lot of things that go on right now where AI in the hands of bad actors trying to get access to your data or manipulate the data, change your data, shut you down is a very, very real thing, and that's where cybersecurity has to be paramount on everything that you do. It is just an absolute necessary evil.
And I think one of the things, maybe just taking a little bit of a global lens, when you look at the different regions, they are at different stages of the journey. And I think ports is one of those unique spaces. Yes, each and every port's unique. However, I think learning of best practices can port over easily. And so understanding what other regions have been doing in certain spaces, in terms of regulations, you look at where Europe and the EU are in regulation, certain technology regulations, we could learn from that. you could always definitely take some of those learnings. And I think even yesterday, those who attended the digital twin presentation, they spoke about that. We may be behind, but we have the opportunity to learn and leapfrog where other regions are. Any other questions?
It's more of a comment, I would say, if you're looking at slides 1, 2, and 3, almost 60% of all the use cases that you mentioned, what is mentioned, automated or autonomous. Now, it's very, very important for us to decouple being smart and going and saying autonomous or automated. There's a distinction there. Because if you're just looking at, let's say, autonomous AGVs or autonomous RTGs, it's not necessary that just by making it automated, you're going to have higher efficiency of making it more productive. That's a complete wrong assumption. There are multiple studies out there that can prove that's wrong. So the use case for automation is different in a country like Japan with an aging population, and it's different in a country like US, or if you look at Northern Europe. So that's very, very important. So at the moment, when we're looking at smart ports, what is necessary is to focus on those use cases which increases productivity and efficiency, like drones. Yeah, I mean, humans can't do that. Similarly, if you're looking at underwater hull inspection, yes, that's a clear use case for automation. But just looking at automation in AGVs or E-cranes, no, that's not.
I'll echo that. Elon Musk removed hundreds of robots out of the production line because it was making things worse. So yeah, and then again, that's why having a roadmap and understanding your intention, what you're actually trying to do, it'll keep you to your true north. Don't do it just because it sounds sexy. Do it because like this is actually going to make a difference. And again, going back to my original comment, everything should be human-centric. If you're not making things better for people, you shouldn't be doing it.
Definitely. Agreed. And again, echo comments that you made. The business outcome's got to be clear, right? At the end of the day, it's got to be clear the outcome that you're chasing, and not technology for technology's sake, so to speak. Any other questions?
I just want to make one more comment about that. It seems to me like the less that the people do,
Sorry, didn't catch it.
and the machines do more, the dumber the people are going to be.
So,
I mean, I hate to break the bubble or anything, but
No.
I'm doing a job and all of a sudden I have to quit doing it because AI comes in here, and then next thing you know, AI starts messing up. Well, I got what I learned, and who's going to correct the problem over here?
how many farriers are there in the United States today versus 1900?
Farriers or what?
Farriers, the guys that shoe horses,
Oh, okay.
right? So there were a significant portion of the population were farriers in 1900, and there are very few now. They get paid really well though, because most people have horses now. They're show horses, or they're expensive. They're just an animal they can feed cash, and I came out of that world. And so things change, and that's the whole thing. So the thing that you might hold sacred today, it's like, oh, you can't touch this job. In the future, it's a different type of job. That's why I was saying, like, the stevedore of the future is like the NASA mission specialist today. It's going to be a much more technical job. It's going to be a sexier job. It's going to be like, oh wow, you get to work with that big kind of ship doing that kind of thing. Line handling is all automated now. It's like all the things that you would see in kind of a science fiction movie. That's what a port's going to look like more in 50 years from now. And so all those jobs are going to change. So it's some kind of, at times it's a painful evolution. You look at what Uber did to the taxi industry. Yet I think a lot of people are grateful that they can get an Uber rather than a taxi. So I don't disagree with you, but at the same time, I think this is just part of natural evolution. And AI is, when it is used right, actually makes you way more performant, and ideally gives you more time to do things and not have to work so hard. So that's the promise of it.
I'd echo what Steve said. And I think right now, I'm going to see we're at the dawn of AI. This is, I feel like where AI was like when someone discovered how refrigeration works. And the people that benefited most from refrigeration is not the refrigerant maker or the guys who make fridges, it's Coca-Cola, because they can sell you a cold Coke. And that the companies that are yet to leverage AI have not even began really, touching on it. And I think for right now, a lot of maybe the people impacted or folks that would be impacted, they'll be impacted by someone leveraging AI, not just AI coming by itself. That's not what's happening. There'll be other folks that are using AI to do the same exact job. I think that's kind of where we are right now. And that's why I say it's a dawn. It's not yet where AI will come take anyone's job. It's people using AI that will come.
Yeah, so I'm here representing an industry partner, right, looking to support these kind of applications. And I just kind of wondered in the crowd, how many people here are on the consumer side versus the provider side to support this? Where is the interest higher on the port administration side, on the authority side, or is it on the technology side? Where are we in that balance? Are the consumers ready for it? Are we already in the ports? Or are we in the industry building up the capability ahead of the demand?
So do you want to see a show of hands in the room? Okay, cool. Let's do that. Okay, so those in the ports industry, please raise your hand.
Consumer side.
Consumer side, yeah, that's you. Yeah. That is you too. Okay, cool. That's the answer.
If I could just add, to give you some solid data on that is, to give you an example of smart ports that are deploying, we've got Port of Virginia, which has Port of Virginia has VIT, NIT, two terminals there. We have Holt Logistics that's rolling out. We have Tacoma that's rolling out. We have GCT, which is in Vancouver, rolling out. We had 0 a year ago. So we're seeing every single month another one sign on. And when I mean sign on, they're making the initiatives to use technology to solve and modernize their port.
Any other questions? So maybe we'll switch to, I think, the most exciting part where each one of our esteemed panelists will share with you some parting insights.
I thought you were going to do the dance that we rehearsed. No.
Go ahead, Steve.
I believe in my heart that the port industry has been massively underserved for a long time by technology providers. I think they've skipped over it and didn't really realize the opportunity that was there to be transformational. And it's one reason why I'm here and have a big team here and hugely focused on, because we feel like this is such an amazing opportunity to make a difference in something that is critical to everybody's life. There's no one who's not affected by something that happens in a port, whether it's a maritime port or I'm in Texas, so the ports of entry from Mexico, that it's a huge issue. And so I am grateful that there are other technologists that are focused on this and want to make a difference. And for those that don't, well, thank you for not showing up. We're happy to be here. So so I'm super grateful to be here, and it's been really an incredible journey so far with the APA and their support. Also, the support of Ericsson is just a tremendous partner, and being able to be on a panel like this and just speak to everyone is really a great thrill. So thank you.
I'd like to express my thank you to APA, to all. Be patient with my English, so we are, yes, and a pigeon, sorry, also. But it's very important for us, as Steve told us about, we are looking for the transformation. Everyone here, our industry, as a port authority, and our colleague said smart port, not all technology, but we have a different sense of smart ports here. And my consideration is the smart port needs to bring more value to our operation. And value means, in our case, more volume, about cost to our clients. So we're looking forward this transformation, what these guys bring us or offer us, provide a lot of stuffs and big high-tech stuff here. I saw in the booth a drone subway, a subsea. It's very interesting. Then this kind of things could help us to improve and do a good job with our community. So thank you so much.
I would like to close with, we're excited to be here. If you would like to continue the conversation, there's a booth out there, and we have a live private network that's up and running with some smart use cases that we can walk through with you. Fresh Consulting is there as well, so you can see some of the use cases that they've deployed. And I'll close with that we feel the foundation of a smart port is a private network. And the comment made by, well, what about AI and how can you make sure? The nice thing about the private network is they use SIM cards that are just for the port, so they don't share the network externally. So it really helps with those security and cyber issues, and it keeps it in-house.
Thank you very much to our panelists. In closing, Fujitsu has a vision over the next 10 years that sustainability transformation is going to be very critical. And in the port space, I think we spoke about port communities. We spoke about being in an ecosystem and making sure that that ecosystem is sustainable. I think one of the things that we are committed to is helping ports leapfrog the digital transformation that some of us feel we may have missed into this sustainable transformation. We also do have a booth, and please do swing by. Thank you very much to the panelists. I hope you guys did get benefit out of this session, and let's continue the conversation.